And welcome back. Does everyone have their sodas and popcorns with them? Hey guys, it's Hooligan again. I am so happy to be here with you, and I have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to introduce you to Mr. Eric Henson, cover artist for the Cowboys in Hell edition. Whoa, that looks so groovy. Wow. Hey, what's up, Eric? Thank you for joining us. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Right on, right on. So let's jump into it. I looked up and I saw that you did some cover art for one of my favorite titles I used to collect back in the day, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I saw the Last Ronin #1 cover you did, and it was stunning. How was it that you got into this crazy industry of comics?
I think I have one of the strangest stories for getting into comics. It's already a very varied business where everyone's story is kind of different for how they got in, but mine is ridiculous. So I was in the military at the time, and I did little sketches here and there for fun, and I would post my artwork on a little self-made website. At the time, a big filmmaker, Morgan Spurlock, was looking to make a movie about a comic book artist trying to break into the business, and he wanted to film San Diego Comic-Con and go through that whole experience. One of the producers on the film was Stan Lee, and basically they were browsing the internet and saw my website. Next thing you know, my phone's ringing, and it was Morgan Spurlock and Stan Lee and some of the other producers asking if I wanted to be in a feature film about San Diego Comic-Con, and I said yes, obviously. And so that next Monday, they were out at my house doing filming for the movie. We went to San Diego, and they followed me around doing my first portfolio reviews. And I got hired on my very first review by a small company called Arch Enemy Entertainment, which is, I think, out of business now. But yeah, that's how I broke into the business.
So you had Stan Lee as one of the people that approached you to get noticed. That is impressive.
Very rare.
That is impressive. Did you almost hang up thinking it was a crank call?
I did think it was a prank call. That's exactly what I said. But they assured me it was true, and man, it was an amazing experience. And not only that, like as soon as I got on, they were like, "Okay, well, you're part of the family now. Who do you want to meet?" And I was like, "I don't know, Jim Lee." And they were like, "Sure, let's go over and let's go talk to him." And so on my first day, I got to meet some of the greats and hang out with some of the greats and talk to them and just fanboy up close.
I got to say, I'm jealous. I only got to see Stan Lee from afar. Now, here's my question for you. This is the first cover you've done for us here at Coffin.
Mm-hmm.
And what inspired you for this? Because this is a really cool image. I really love it, and I love that it's the Cowboys from Hell.
Well, originally I know Joe Gomez, the artist on La Muerta, and I really liked that book. And so I was talking to him about, hey, you think maybe at Coffin they're looking for any covers for La Muerta or anything they're working on? I never thought that Brian would ever let me touch Lady Death. So I was just trying to start off with some of the other properties that had come out of Coffin. And so I got the okay to start on Lady Death right away and do this image. I don't know. I like zombies. I like a lot of monsters. I'm kind of the monster guy. Even in my own indie book, I do a lot of monsters and creatures. And so it just kind of fit the character. And I had done a lot of illustrations of like Storm and characters who have kind of a similar visual power set to Lady Death. And so I just kind of imagined what Lady Death would look like unleashing all that power to wake the dead. And the cover just kind of came together.
So, I mean, I'd love to see you do a La Muerta cover. That's my favorite cover. But this one really caught my eye because I found it to be really dramatic, and I really loved getting lost at the background, looking at the cowboy zombies, the horse. It was really neat. Was there any like Western characters you used as an homage or something like a throwback to coming up with the sides?
While I was doing it in my head, I had a lot of some of the older Western comics in mind. I thought a lot about Jonah Hex specifically. If Jonah Hex was more of a The Sixth Gun by Oni Press was a
Nice.
definite influence on it. I love that book. So yeah, that was all kind of in the back of my mind. But in reality, I'd seen a lot of art of Lady Death raising zombies, and a lot of malevolent. I think Malevolent Decimation was a storyline where she did that, and really, I just threw cowboy hats on them. And it all worked out.
Well, it turned out really good. I really like the detailing. It's a really impressive piece. Now, when he came to you, and Brian, how did you actually first get involved, meeting up with Brian Pulido and being presented with this opportunity to do a Lady Death cover?
I think, okay, so I ran into, the first time I met Brian was a very brief encounter. I think we were at, I don't know if it was Baltimore Comic Con or if it was a Wizard World. I can't quite remember what show it was at, but I went into the green room to eat sandwiches. I had a table there. I was a guest there at that show for another book I was doing. And all I remember was sitting down. It was an empty green room. And in comes Brian Pulido, and he had a crew of people just all decked out in black. And I felt like I was in a bar surrounded by a biker gang, but I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do, so I just ate my sandwich quietly and just kind of overheard. And what I overheard was a man who was meticulous and who was very, very organized, and he was talking about planning for Coffin Comics, and I immediately felt like I was in the midst of something much bigger than I'd ever expected. But I didn't, I might have said hello, and that was it. And the second time I met Brian, which kind of led to this cover, was I was invited to Coffin Function, one of the parties that they throw every year, by inker Jeremy Clark, who actually is the inker on this particular cover.
Nice.
He invited me to just come and visit, since he was staying at my house when he was in town to go to the function. And I got to meet a lot of the Coffin staff and hang out with Brian. And, we went to his house and hung out, and it was really cool. I got to see some of the cool collectibles he had at his house and spend time with his wife and all that. So I immediately felt like family. Like this is a very home environment. I imagine that's why you guys love to work there. It just seems like such a family environment, such a friendly place to be. And I knew immediately that was something I wanted to be a part of, even if it was just an artist in the stables.
Now, I think I was at that party.
I think you were. I recognize the mutton chops.
They're a dead giveaway all the time. So when you're here at Coffin, you saw what type of community we're trying to build. Have you noticed that with any other printers, or is this something you're just noticing that's like, wow, this is a unique Coffin Comics type of environment? Yeah,
I've never seen that anywhere else. I mean, granted, my exposure to a lot of the behind the scenes are limited, but I've never seen that familial atmosphere at a publisher before. Usually it's organized, it's professional, it's cut and dry, but never have I felt like, like I have a band of brothers. No, it's the first time I've seen it.
It's interesting. I remember I've known Brian since back in the Chaos days. And it's funny, the Fiends, the first wave of fans, had that look where you're like, whoa, is this a biker gang? Or, oh, so these are comic book fans. And then I joined Coffin 2 years ago, and I'm just like, wow, they're still here, and it's grown. Yeah. And it's like, when you meet these people, it's like a lot of, like you said, it's kind of a little intimidating because you're like, wow, these guys look like bikers and big burly guys. But they're some of the nicest, sweetest, most dedicated fans I've ever seen in my 27 years doing comics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I didn't know when I was invited to the function. I'm like, well, guys, I don't have any leather necklaces and leather jackets with spikes coming out of them. I don't own a set of vampire teeth. So how could I possibly fit in? I couldn't have been more wrong. I mean, I felt like I was at a family reunion. Yeah, it was nice, and everyone was so kind and welcoming, especially to me, being a stranger. I hadn't even done work for the company at the time, and they still treated me as though I had.
Sounds like with the vampire teeth, you ran into Jimmy's brother. Davey must have been at that party.
Oh, does he have some custom fangs?
Yes. Check him out on TikTok. It's ridiculous. What are the influences that got you wanting to work in the comic book industry and become a comic book artist?
Well, I actually grew up not caring too much for comics. It wasn't until my father gifted me his comic book collection of much older books that I started thumbing through them, and I was kind of instantly hooked. Some of the Stan Lee work on Silver Surfer, the original series, hooked me
Nice.
very early. And then later during the Image boom, Spawn was really hard to put down. That's kind of when I was introduced to Lady Death. I think it was probably November '97. I think she was on the cover of Wizard magazine,
Oh
and I
yeah.
saw images of her. I remember the She crossover. I was actually pretty big into the early days of Top Cow with the Darkness and Witchblade, and so that kind of aesthetic has always interested me. But ultimately, what I wanted to do as a younger person, was to be a filmmaker. But when I realized I don't have a budget, and being a filmmaker is difficult because of so many moving parts. But I realized after a while, comic books is the perfect medium to be a filmmaker. I am all the actors. I'm the cinematographer. I'm the director. I scout locations. I was able to produce an entire theatrical film basically for the cost of a pencil and a few sheets of paper. So it was a way to let my imagination run free and tell stories I wanted to tell when I really didn't have the resources to do it.
Do you find that comics are more freeing with that? Because I've noticed that a lot. Brian was a filmmaker. There's other people in the comic industry that either started off on film or were studying film, and they found comics as an alternative because there's no budgets. It's just the limits of
Right.
your imagination.
Yeah, I think it's a direct. I honestly, storytelling. Everyone loves a good story. Stanley used to say, and so I just think that words and pictures going together, no matter how you do it, is something that's going to draw audiences. So the nuances of exactly how you do it. I think there's so many similarities to filmmaking and comic art. There are some differences, but very few. And in fact, when I was getting started, like I said, I got to meet a lot of like heavy hitters early on, and Greg Capullo actually helped me out a lot. I went to him early on because I was trying to learn storytelling. And my training was, he said, look, if you really want to learn how to be a good storyteller, he said, watch a movie with the sound off. Watch movies like that. And if you can still tell what's going on, that's good storytelling. And so he guided me to this book called The 5 C's of Cinematography, which is actually an older book. I think it was made for like 50s and 60s filmmaking. But if you read that, it still applies today of how to frame shots, how to frame actors. It applies to comics. So I mean I think the similarities are striking and really obvious.
So, speaking of film, what are some of your favorite films, and how have they influenced your comic book art, if at all?
Some of my favorite films, I love the Rocky series. Period. Like that series is great to me because of the underdog. So I kind of carried that over to when I create characters, them being the kind of down and out underdog, the one you don't expect to win. But I think The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, 1978's John Carpenter's Halloween. It's a funny story. Okay, so all of my favorite movies, with the exception of Rocky, I like Big Trouble in Little China, Halloween, Assault on Precinct 13. I had no idea as a young kid they were all made by the same guy. I didn't know. So that speaks to what my tastes are. Is a lot of John Carpenter films, the ones that take themselves seriously, the ones that actually don't take themselves seriously. I love that type of storytelling. So I think that those kind of influenced a lot of character creation. I think I do a lot of, like I said, I do a lot of creatures in my book and other books that I work on. So I think a lot of Cronenberg's work on like The Fly and body horror type comics, kind of right up my alley.
Do you have any advice for anyone wanting to get started as an artist in the comic book industry?
Absolutely. Draw a comic book. I mean, I used to be that I would, people would come to you and say, hey, draw from life, make a good portfolio. And that stuff's true. But making a good portfolio only proves that you can make a good portfolio. There are too many people out there now who are making comics and posting web comics and just publishing themselves to compete with them with the portfolio. So if you want to make comics, my advice is, yes, get better. Yes, work really hard, but stop waiting for permission to make a comic. If you want to make a comic, make a comic. Put the comic down in front of, the writer or the artist that you're trying to go to a show and get advice from and impress. That would be my first bit of advice. My second bit of advice would be talk to writers. So if you want to be a better artist, yes, talk to artists, show artists your work. They can help you, but artists aren't the ones necessarily handing you their job, right? So going to artists, I think it's kind of a traditional thing to do at shows and say, hey, look at my stuff. They can help you get better. But I think if you really want to start working, hand your work to writers. Go see writers, because writers have more stories that they want to tell than they have artists to draw them most of the time. So you may not quite be ready for that big Batman book or that Lady Death book, but you might be okay for my third tier idea that I was thinking of that I don't have time to develop that you could probably help me with, which is kind of what happened to me. So I would advise, like I said, if you want to make comics, make one. Stop waiting on permission. Make your own. That way you can own it, and you'll take the hits, but you'll also revel in all of the profits and positive things that happen too. And number two, show your work to writers, because they're not necessarily looking for the perfect artist all the time. They're looking for the artist that may fit the aesthetic of the story they want to tell. And you never know if you're that person.
Now, you'd mentioned at the beginning that you were hoping to work on a La Muerta one. What's your thoughts on the character La Muerta? What is it that draws you to her?
The contrast of the imagery on her face, that skull motif, I love it. It also it strikes me as another story that I love, another movie that I love, in The Crow. I think there's some very basic similarities between them, obviously being a revenge story and the face paint. Other than that, there's some obvious differences and very, very different. And Brian and McLean, they do a great job writing it, much different than The Crow. But I love that dark aesthetic that it has, man. It's just striking. And I love the culture that it puts on display. Just visually, it has such a different flavor to things that I've seen before. I just, that world is one that I would love to take a pass at.
What kind of music do you like listening to when you're working on art? What style of music? It's like, I'm ready to go.
Anything that serves what I'm drawing. So I've done a couple of different covers so I did like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 106, like you mentioned, the Last Ronin. When I was listening to that, I was listening to the soundtrack to the 90s TMNT movie.
Nice.
On loop, because whatever it is that pumps the energy of what I'm drawing is what I'll listen to. So I did a cover for Scott Snyder's and Tony Daniels' Nocterra. And so that was kind of like a futuristic sci-fi, post-apocalyptic setting. So I listen to music, I do searches for music like that. So yeah, I don't really have a go-to. I don't have like a set playlist of a particular genre of music. I listen to whatever it fits what I'm drawing. And if I'm running close to a deadline, if it's getting late, I'm in burning the midnight oil and I have to have it done in a few hours, then I'll put on the most extreme, like orchestral, epic music, because it makes me draw faster. I think that's something kind of weird that I do.
Throw on a little old Fortuna in the background that they used in Excalibur. That to me is just like, wow, exactly. That's so epic. That just driving beat. What's it like working for Brian and Coffin Comics?
Freeing. It's very freeing. It's relaxing. I think what's great about working for Brian and Coffin is the expectations are set out early on. It's very organized. They'll say, hey, this is exactly what we're looking for, and give you the parameters. And communication is really good. So I think on this cover, I sent it in, and there were some edits to make as far as like the hair. It was very minor. Like I think her part was going the wrong way. And so there was a lot of attention to detail, but the communication was great. Just getting it done, which isn't always the case. And sometimes I remember, I don't want to mention any company names, but I was doing something for a company one time, and I sent in the thumbnails, and it was approved, and everything was good. And then I drew the pages, and they were like, "Oh no, we didn't want it like this." But I had emails that said we want it exactly like this. So yeah, there's a lot. That's one of the things in comics that's notorious. There's no crosstalk. Like people don't talk to each other. Editors don't talk to other ones who may have spoken to you. Everyone at Coffin that I've spoken to seemed to be on board. and they, everyone communicates with the person who may be in charge of that particular thing.
Did you find that very freeing as an artist to be able to have an environment like that for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to be left in the dark at 0:30 or 0 dark 30, wondering if I've fulfilled what that writer wants for me. So I know, although Lady Death is Brian's character, she's been with him the whole time. I know he takes a lot of care, as I do with, anything that I have this creator owned. So I just really wanted to make sure it was something that he liked, really loved, and then I represented the character well. And I could tell that everybody there cares about those characters. I've watched live streams that you do where you talk about how much you like La Muerta, and I could tell you have a passion for that character. You get excited every Kickstarter where you find out the next chapter is a done deal and it's coming. So I think I sense that energy with everybody there, and it's contagious to the artists as well.
So you're based here in Arizona, local boy do good, and with this artist, with this cover that you did for us, how many reties or how many times did you attempt before you settled on this is the look I gotta have? How long is the process for you?
About maybe 25 minutes.
Wow.
I do thumbs really quickly, so I'll scribble out 3 or 4 thumbs right away. So what I'll always do is the one that I really want to do, I'll pour a lot into it, the design that speaks to me, and then I'll do like 2 or 3 other passes just to give options. But I typically will put more detail into the one that I really feel or speaks to me. And I don't know if that kind of subliminally has the has the effect of that's the one that gets picked. But yeah, it only takes a few minutes to do thumbs, because when you've been doing comics for a little while, and I haven't worked on anything huge, I'm not trying to act like I'm the, I've worked on a lot of smaller books. You draw a lot of poses, you draw a lot of, strong characters. Some of that body language is second nature. You can pump out, once you know the type of character you're drawing, you can kind of do a nice gesture drawing or loose illustration of what that character should be doing. So yeah, I know Lady Death is very dramatic. That's one of the first words that comes to mind when I think about her power set and her backstory is dramatic. So I didn't want to have a really static pose or have it be boring. I wanted it to flow from top to bottom. And I think it kind of does.
Well, one thing I really like about this image is just the pose you have her in, and it's just like, it's like she's leaping up and she's powered up and we're just ready to start attacking. It's just, you really did a masterful job. I like how it's just kind of serpentine, like how her body just drapes angrily across the cover. It's just really stunning. So props. I think it's a really beautiful design. You really did a good job.
I appreciate it. It was all accidental.
Is there anything that when besides the part in the hair, but anything you're like, I wish I did this, or I wish maybe I did this slightly different? Do you ever second guess yourself just as you're ready to turn a project in?
Oh yeah, I think the thumbnail or the preliminary idea that I always have is a million times more epic than what I actually create. So if I could redo that cover, I would put a horde, like an entire army of zombies back there. I would put way more. I would think way more detail. I will probably, I don't know, I probably would change the composition here and there, little bits and tweaks. Overall, I'm happy with it. But it's a lot to fit into one cover, and also leave room for the title font, which I kind of didn't. But I did my best as far as incorporating all the things I'd like to see in the cover. But I think the answer to that is I would do more of everything I already did. Just more of it.
Just adding to it and taking it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Now, I find that interesting that because it's interesting to hear after the finished product is out, what do the artists think about it once it's done? And it's interesting you say it's like, I would have done this or would have done that.
Yeah,
do you save that information for a future cover where you're like, okay, I got another chance, I'm going to just go crazy on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't believe you get better as an artist while you're drawing. I think you get better in between drawings. So as I review the last cover I did, I always take that to the next one. Yeah.
All right. Would you like to take any questions from our viewers?
Of course. If they have any, I'll answer.
Here we go. Who's first up?
Let's see what we got here. There's a nice comment here from Brian. testament to you getting out there, your eyes on work.
Nice.
You know who's looking? Very good.
Thank you, Brian, for the comment.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. Thanks.
Pantera's cover.
Pantera's Cowboys from Hell. Was that an influence for it? The Cowboys from Hell from Pantera?
No, not at all. Now I'm gonna have to check that out. Like, yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
Good album. Very good album.
Gary Tucker.
Gary Tucker.
Adjective, way to look at that. Positive, very nice.
Wow, yeah, you're getting a lot of good. You're definitely made an impression with a lot of the fans here. Definitely. Awesome work. Wow. David Harrigan. Right on. Thank you, David.
Thanks.
He explains it a little bit more. Mindset, positive.
Wow, yeah. Wow, you definitely. I remember first time I saw it when Brian brought in the mock-up of your art. I was just like, whoa, who's this? It definitely brought just booga with the eyes. I was like, wow, this is stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Jessica loves the cover. She called it a beautiful
Thank you,
cover.
Jessica. Thank you, Heather.
Wow, you've got a lot of people really digging that cover. How does it feel being a first-time artist on like a company like Coffin, where a lot of the artists have these huge ravenous fans? Is it intimidating? First time being a first-time artist for a cover?
Yeah, it definitely is. I definitely feel a bit overwhelmed with the fact that there are some fans who are very, very particular about their artists. They have their favorites, and they see me doing it and they're like, "Who's this guy?" But I imagine the Coffin fans are just as welcoming as the Coffin company and staff themselves. It seems to kind of be go hand in hand. Everybody's been very accepting and very kind so far. But yeah, I hope I could tap into something that they like to see.
I'd love for you to tap into a La Muerta cover. That's there you go. I'm gonna say it. There you go. Boom. Yeah, I'd love to see it. What poses and scene are you thinking about for La Muerta?
I actually don't have any particular pose already thought out. I guess that would depend on, kind of what's going on in the story. I'm a huge, huge believer that something should be happening in the cover. I know there are a lot of bad girl and pinup covers that, this company does a lot of those. I love covers with action, though, that kind of feel like they're a part of the story as well. So I would try to incorporate that. But also I watch movies that inspire what I'm doing as well. So I will probably go back and watch like Desperado or Once Upon a Time in Mexico or something, and kind of like look at action scenes in that and see if anything speaks to me.
Now, when you're doing, because I thought it was interesting, you were looking forward to La Muerta first, and you were like, "Whoa, you're giving me Lady Death." We've got a big thing going on with the upcoming Kickstarters, where the writers the readers get to vote who's going to win in a fight between Hell Witch and Lady Death. Who would you choose? Who's your choice in that fight?
Lady Death. I'm pretty sure she's been up against She's been up against a lot over her. She has more experience in that. Her publication history speaks way more to me. I mean, if you go back and read like her tricking Lucifer to passing him through Heaven's Gate, like if you defeat him, I mean, what else is there to do?
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
I don't know what else you could do there. Yeah.
Let's see. Awesome to meet new comic artists. Would Eric prefer working on independent or go mainstream? That's a really good question.
I'm going to be honest here. I would not prefer to go mainstream. I love independent comic books. I know a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I'd love to work." I am of the mindset that I would like to write my own stories and create my own characters, or work with other artists and writers and help them develop their characters. It's not that those classic big two characters aren't great. They are great, but I feel as though a lot of time and attention has been given to them, and that's great. And there are artists who want to do that, but I feel a more personal attachment to developing characters that don't have so many stories told yet, and do things like like Hellboy and Lady Death, and things that start off smaller and kind of cascade into that.
Now, you said that you started getting the comics because the comics were pretty much given to you. What era of those comics were they, and did they help influence your beginnings in art?
Yeah, oh yeah. The era of comics that I read, like I said, it was the original run with Stanley on Silver Surfer. Then it was a lot of comics that were published in the 80s, like Sergeant Rock. the Ron Lim and the Ron Lim art on Silver Surfer, on his second run in the 80s. Yeah, mostly stuff like that. I mean, there are some deep cuts that I could talk about, Arek and other titles, and Magnus Robot Fighter. Like I just got handed a stack of just randomness. Jonah Hex, a lot of Jonah Hex. Obviously, there was a lot of Thor and Spider-Man and Fantastic Four, early Fantastic Four. I think I had 2 Amazing Spider-Man #1s there before I even knew what in the world that I even had. So yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
You still have those, right?
I have one. No, wow. I got rid of 2 of them, and I kept a Golden Record reprint just for the way the cover looks. So I have one.
I love those Golden Records.
Yeah.
I used to love to buy those. I think I have the Godzilla one they did. They released it on CD, so I was like, yay! Just modern day radio programs for kids. It was a lot of fun. Very stimulated to get the mind with the imagination of those spoken records. See if we got any more questions for you before we wrap things up. What we got here? Sup, brother? Love your work and got my copies. Thank you very much, David.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, David.
That's underground.
Is that Gary Tucker? Gary Tucker. All right. Have you been hired to do any storyboarding, and would you if it was offered?
Yes, actually I have. So I've done storyboards for some indie films. Oddly enough, most of the movies that I was hired to do storyboards for never came to be. So that happens with movies all the time. You're working on pre-production and you're doing, I did one that was supposed to be a romantic comedy. And then halfway through all the storyboards, they're like, yeah, romantic comedy is not selling right now. Can you change it to horror? Same story, just make it horror. I was like, okay. Once I get a script, I'll go back and change it. But yes, I'm open to it, and I would.
Now I've noticed you're definitely more into a lot of the indie film making and indie comics. Do you find it just a more freer environment, and you're not just restricted by the big corporateness of some of the books and films?
Yeah, I mean, I that's part of it. And another thing is I've done indie books. So I've gone through the process of bare bones writing a script, writing a story, writing a miniseries, getting it funded through Kickstarter, and releasing it, finding, larger publishing. So because I was able to do that at every level, and to be a project manager and hire inkers and hire colorists and hire letterers and know what that's like, that process, that collaborative process, I love how it feels to be able to do it. I would hate for that kind of to be taken away from me. I love getting into all those different aspects of the story you're telling. For a bigger company like that, you can't necessarily do that because they kind of have everything set. So yeah, I did a book called Eden, a couple of years back that got published at a different publisher, and I love doing that, So yeah, that speaks more to me. Having that creative control, once you've done it and you've created something of your own, it's hard to go back and have a more strict rein put on what you're doing creatively.
That's amazing. Oh, we got another question. Hey, you got a new fan.
I'll always take that. Thank you.
Great artwork. Thank you, guys. If you haven't seen it, this is just really stunning pieces. The Cowboys from Hell edition. Eric this is his first cover with us here at Coffin. He really knocked it out of the park, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what else you have for us in the future. Thank you so very much. And, let's see if there's any other questions or comments, guys. Let's give it out there. Here we go. Awesome cover. Are there characters you would like to see meet or drawn together?
I always wonder why I never saw Lady Death interact with Spawn. I just was like, these are two universes that maybe it happened and I missed it, but I don't think so. I always thought that Lady Death and Spawn would fit perfectly in the same world together. So I'd like to see that. I have a character called Naraya that I would like to see crossover with literally anybody from any mainstream comic, because that would mean that I was in that book in some way or form. I'm working on a book right now with writer Todd DeZago, who's a longtime DC and Marvel artist. I think he wrote over 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. So I'm working on a top secret project with him that I can't really talk about. But the main character from that book is one that I would love to see crossover with the likes of Venom or anybody in the Spider-Man universe or Punisher or universe like that. Anything like Spider-Man Noir, any kind of noir comic, I would love to see crossover. So can't talk much about it, but yeah, that character would be one that I'm interested in seeing crossover. But you'll have to wait to see what it is.
Now, where can everyone find your art or find you on the internet?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You can just Google Eric Henson. I think I'm one of the first ones that pop up. But you can go to erichensonart.com, which links to all of the Facebook and Twitter accounts that I have. But that's the main hub for it. So any of the books that I'm talking about, you can purchase. You can just click on the cover, and it'll take you straight to wherever you can buy it.
Well, I'd like to personally thank you for taking some time out and joining us here for the Phoenix Rising World Goth Day event we're doing here at Coffin Comics. I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you again for an amazing cover, and I feel a really impressive first appearance here at Coffin Comics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I just hope everybody out there who's showing support has a great day. Thank you for all the love. I can feel it coming through the internet, guys. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you, Eric. Everybody, I'll see you guys in a few minutes. We'll be back. I'm sworn to you. I'm the hooligan. I'm out.
Swarmfest, Swarmfest, Swarmfest! Swarmfest, the global gathering for Coffin Comics fiends and the Swarm, featuring exclusive parties, artists, signings, commissions, panels, beer, food, coffee, alcohol, tours of HQV2, trading posts, CGC, friendship, community, camaraderie, shenanigans, insanity, and more.
Plan ahead. Be there.
Tickets and details on sale now at coffincomics.net/Swarmfest. Presented by Coffin Comics. Swarmfest. February 25th through 27th, 2022. Mesa, Arizona, USA. Swarm.